Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. I'm Rory Paquette, but you already know that. I am, as always, your very grateful host. I want to say a couple things real quick before we get rolling. We got a great guest with us today talking about a topic that you're all gonna identify with one way or another because we talk about it a lot on our show and our private group, the whole nine yards, and that's divorce. So we're going to be talking about that today from a lot from the men's standpoint, which I think is going to bring a lot of really good information to you guys. But before we do that, I want to make sure I thank all you guys. We recently made that move to every single day, 5 days a week, putting out episodes. You folks have answered the call and then some. Thank you so much for the downloads, the messages, the DMs, the shares, everything you guys have done. It's been amazing. And if you folks aren't out there doing everything you're doing, I'm not sitting over here doing what I'm doing. So I want to thank you guys for that from the bottom of my heart. It's meant a lot. After 5 years of doing this with you guys, making that jump was huge, and you guys really came through. Now, before I introduce this awesome guest, I do have to, and you all know, pay a couple bills. So we're going to hit our sponsor real quick as I take a sip of my preferred beverage. Oh, I need one more of those. It's been a long day, guys. Come on. And I'll be drinking that throughout the show because it's awesome and it's Freedom Hill Coffee. That's right, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up. They're absolutely awesome. Check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. This stuff is fantastic. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans. And you know how important that is here on the Power Man Show. That's why we support them. So, guys, go check them out at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram while I take one more sip of this absolutely superb blend. All right, let's hit it. Awesome guest today. You guys are going to love this. Um, the founder of the Divorce Detox online digital program for men, Paul Murphy. Paul, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rory. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I look forward to having a chat and seeing how the flow goes. So thank you so much.
That's awesome. That's great. All right, Divorce Detox. Just the name tells us everything we need to know about this. I don't think there's a single guy listening that can't identify with the name right out of the chute. Paul, tell us who you are, what brought you to this, and how you ended up, through your life coming to the point where you did a divorce detox program.
Absolutely. So, professionally, I'm trained as a paramedic years ago and saw all kinds of stuff and helped a lot of people and worked in high volume urban settings. So it was pretty fast and furious and met my, at the time, girlfriend. I started dating and left the paramedic world and transitioned to management, get married, stay in management. Was writing some articles during this whole time and speaking at conferences on healthcare stuff as well. And the topic switched as I went from the clinical world to the administrative world and get married and have a kid, have a second kid, still work in management, get laid off, marriage starts to get a little rough. Then we start
Mm.
getting ready for separation. Then we get ready to get divorced, get laid off, keep through this. We get divorced. It's all said and done, get laid off again. I was like, man, this is crazy. So 2023, 2024, my mentor looks at me and says, what are you up to these days? And I said, I'm going to get ready to write another article because that's what I've been doing. And I was going to write a management article. And she's like, no, we're going to go do some brainstorming. And we're going to switch things up because you've been doing this forever writing. And let's mix it up here and figure out what else Paul can do that's A, put you out of your comfort zone, Paul, and B, create something new. So we sat down, went through of the topics that I know and that I've lived through. And is there any way? She's like, Paul, you've been in healthcare your whole time. You've been helping people out. Why don't we go through and look at the topics where you're passionate about? And she's like, wait a second, you keep coming back to your divorce, your divorce, your divorce. She goes, why don't you put a program together on your divorce, A through Z? We'll put it online so that other guys and potentially women, depending on situation, can benefit from what you went through and what you're creating to help them with their divorce. Because at the time, there was nothing out there per se. I was grasping at straws when I went through my divorce. So made a huge decision late 2023, 24 to put this program together. Going through the process of putting this program, ripped off some band-aids on my heart, my emotions, my mindset, and the program is up and live and running. We got people going through it. And it's a 24/7 program. It's got 7 modules and a bunch of lessons under each module. And some of it's like this, where we're talking through PowerPoint stuff. And then some of it is also like me at a local park, just having a random thought of, hey guys, consider this factor, explore this, and posting it. And then we also include some learning activities because while we can sit and talk about this all day long, as you know, unless you actually apply it, it doesn't stick and you don't use it.
Absolutely.
So we gave them some resources. And so that's how we got to where we're at today. It's been a wild adventure. And I will tell you that 2 weeks ago, I had a podcast with a female out of India. And we wrapped up the podcast. She says, Paul, even though we are completely different cultures, all of the concepts apply. She goes, and you could have different religions, different laws, but the core concepts apply. And she goes, I never realized that till we went through this. So it's very cool to me because I never saw that coming. And I've had women approach me to say, Paul, you got this program. My buddy here is going to go through divorce. He's not going to buy this thing because he doesn't know about it. I'm going to get it for him. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool. So it's been a wild ride. I'm learning a lot, meeting some great folks, and that's really how we got to where we're at today.
Wow. Okay. So this is all based on your personal experience, really, and what you've learned and what you wish you could have learned during the process. Yes?
And yes, and I pulled in stories from other guys too. So it's
Oh,
not
you
just
did.
my stuff. Yeah, I reached out to some guys. Tell me what works for yours and what didn't. And yeah, there's some interesting people out there with some different divorce stories for sure.
Oh, I don't doubt that. We hear them a lot here. So, we do a lot of work with the fathers' rights movements
Hmm.
and things like that. I've had several of those guys on over the years, and whenever we do that, I mean, the comments start coming out of the woodwork,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very men one side, women the other side, of course, because that sort of thing just breeds division. I
Hmm.
have to give you, before we go any further, let me just give you all the credit in the world. You went on a female-led podcast to talk about this.
Hmm.
Really?
Yeah, I've had
I
two
mean,
actually. Yeah, and
no
they've
joke.
yeah, and both were from other countries. The two sessions went very different, and yeah, it's been like I said, I didn't expect some of these things to evolve at all the way they have.
That's amazing. I mean, it must be pretty good information that can be applied. It can't be that awful. If
Right.
it's,
And part of this whole thing is, divorce is painful, period.
of
And
course.
what I failed to appreciate was the emotional side, the mindset, and how that impacts the rest of your life. Because when you're going through divorce, and at least when I was growing up, you hear divorce, you hear child support, spousal support, house, assets, blah, blah, blah. That's the nuts and bolts of it. There's
Right.
this whole other side of divorce that I never heard about. Like how when you get home to an empty house and your kids are gone, your ex is gone, you now have an empty house and it's so
Yeah.
damn quiet. And now your question is, what do you do and how do you manage that? Or you're at work in a meeting and you realize that when you get done with this meeting, you're going to mediation or you're going to see your lawyer. And so now you're at work and your divorce is pinging your work life too. So there's all these pieces to it that until I actually went through putting this whole thing together, I was like, whoa, man, did I miss this going through my divorce. And I will openly admit I was very lucky in my divorce. It was very amicable. And we went 50-50 down, and we're still friends, if you will. Our kids look at us going, man, some of our kids' parents are not like you guys at all.
Yeah.
And the thing I kept saying to the kids is, the guys, every time I have an interaction with my ex or you guys, I always put you guys first. It's always about the kids. And that's just the stance I take. And I've had people say to me, Paul, your content's great, but man, my divorce has got legal aspects and I got supervised visitation and all this other stuff. And I go, I get it. There's layers to this thing, and there is no one out there, in my opinion, who can put an entire program together that's going to cover every single scenario. We
Sure.
tried to put down the core stuff and other things based on it. My mentor actually pushed me hard on the dating aspect. There's a whole section on dating, which is a whole nother trip on more of the humorous side of some things, ghosting and catfish and all this other stuff. Oh, it was crazy.
Well, I wasn't sure which point you wanted to hit first, but I'll tell you what, if you want to go right to the dating, since you brought that up, I know that
Sure.
that's absolutely a gigantic issue for guys because it ranges from when are you allowed to start? When is it okay with the kids? When
Hmm.
is, what are you going to have to deal with the ex in terms of trying to start?
Hmm.
When does she start? You know what I mean? Because that
Hmm.
that has nothing to do with when you get to start.
Correct.
We
It's
find
true.
very
Right.
often.
Oh no, it's you
Yeah.
it's two there's two people in a marriage and there's two different worlds being living and each of
Yeah.
the pieces making their own decision. You can't control what this person over here is saying or doing. It's
No.
you can only control what you do and how you react to what they do.
And the rules are totally different.
Correct. Oh, and the stereotype out
Oh,
there, the
yeah.
global stereotype is very different as well.
Right. So what
Go
do you
ahead.
have to say about guys, the men who are
Hmm.
trying to, even dip their toe back
Hmm.
into the dating pool after divorce? We'll skip right past the divorce and go to that part because that's something that nobody ever talks about. We all talk
Yeah.
about the pain and the stuff and the child
Right.
support and
Right.
the suffering.
Yeah.
No one
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
ever talks about how do you rebuild and start over.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
And,
how do you start? Go ahead.
every situation is different. There's no set way. And it's interesting because my female mentor, and now we're working with two mentors. My female mentor said to me, Paul, I was dating this guy and he was not ready to date. He was divorced and he kept referring to his ex, which is awkward as heck when you get out there in the dating world and you keep
Mm,
referring back to your ex. That's huge flags. One thing I always say to people is, are you truly, truly, truly emotionally ready to start dating? Because if you're not, you're going to ultimately give yourself a disservice to yourself and to the person you're with and anyone who's even remotely related to them, kids, family members, etc. So it's one of those scenarios for myself. I'm a date one person at a time guy, and I'm a long-term relationship kind of guy. I'm not a player. I never have been. And even when I mention this because I know people who've gotten through divorces became instant players and played and just had a field day, which, hey, to each their own. That's cool. That's not my
sure.
style. Emotionally being ready for it. And in addition to the emotion aspect of dating, and it's not so much the romantic, sexy side of it. This is the, are you ready to have mature adult conversations with the person you are dating and have open communication and share? Because if you want the relationship, you're going to have to start bearing your bones and you may have to be sharing details. You might have to, so you want to get a place together. You're going to have to disclose your finances or at least some proximity thereof. Because if you go start signing leases with this person, you're going to be
Hmm.
knowing each other's business. And so
Right.
the dating world, my opinion, you got to make sure your mindset is right, that you're emotionally prepared. And the other part of this in a dating world, it's the dating world, what you see online. So if you're going to do it online versus in person, versus being set up by a professional organization, you're going to have to make those decisions. And I tried each one of those. The being set up by a professional and I'm picky as heck with who I date because I know
Okay.
I know exactly what I'm looking for, and my girlfriend right now is just what I was looking for. So I'm like, sweet spot. How did I find her? I found her online because I pinged her twice on one of the apps. I was like, hey, it's me. And then, hey, it's me again. One of the services I went through would set you up to go on dinner for or lunch, depending on your schedule, and they pre-screen you. You don't see the person prior to this. You don't engage them. You just show up basically on a blind date, and that for me was a miss times three. And I put the account on hold for a variety of one. I got stood up. One I walked in. There was this is so funny. One I walk in. There's two ladies sitting single at two different tables, and I'm like yes to the left and no to the right, and I got put to the right, and I was like and I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but I'm walking into this thing excited because I get to meet somebody who maybe find a new partner, and now I'm gonna get through a meal and blah 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 and go through there. And so the dating world is it's complex, and you got to be careful, in my opinion. And one of the dating apps I was using actually showed up. At a location after meeting someone and we texted and chatted online. Then I showed up and realized that her pictures were changing and she didn't look like what she looked like. Right, eyebrows are up right now. I walked up and I tried to get out of it before I walked into the bar. And she saw me and I was like, okay, here we go. So I just got through it. So those are real life experiences, and I was good grief at least 5 years post divorce, no dating. And I needed to focus. I focused to getting my kids through school, elementary, high school, etc., getting them out of the house, focus on making sure my finances were there and just settling down and focusing on those core stuff. And I'm not a big party guy either, so I was boring. And once I got to the point where the kids were a little older, I'm like, all right, now I'm going to start doing this and heading down that path. So and it wasn't an easy decision either.
Nice. 5 years.
At least, yeah. And
Five
that was
years.
intentional, yeah. Just because I need to make sure that I was truly ready. And there's guys who are like, you waited too long. Well, I think everyone's different, and I wasn't really ready because of a variety of things. I also We did not have any affairs. I didn't cheat at all. She didn't that I'm aware of, and it was just an amicable divorce, if you will. We just split apart. The dating thing, she dated before I did, and I met her significant other at the time, and it was all good. I was polite about it. We were mature adults. I respected his boundaries, his house, etc., and so that whole transition. Then she was happy at the time and has moved on since. But yeah, to your point earlier, you have to be ready for when your spouse starts dating, and they may pick something completely different than what you had before.
That's another hard part is not only is she now dating, but you also don't get any say in who
Correct.
this guy is that's in the house with your kids.
Hmm.
And you
Correct.
kind of feel like, look, you can date who you want, but if they're in the house with my kids, I should get a
Hmm.
say, and you don't.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
how do you start to prepare your mindset for that kind of thing?
I walked into this. So I had actually, when she started dating the person she was dating at the time, I had actually met him in social environments prior and knew because they were working together, things like that. And I knew of him at that level. And he seemed like a really cool guy and everything else. And my mindset, I said to myself, my ex is an intelligent individual who's smart and holds her own. I have faith in her that she can make the right decisions and keep our kiddos safe with whoever she quote unquote dates. So I had that advantage, and I to this day, she and I, like I said, we're two. We both do our thing, and she's a smart person. She's going to make the right choices, etc. I have that faith in her. There's other guys I've spoken to who said to me, Paul, there's no way in hell I'm putting any faith in who she dates and who she's like, ain't happening. And I've had guys say, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go to my lawyer to see if I can't put some restraining orders or something else. And I've had other people say, "Do you know your little letter, your memo of understanding, Paul, your agreement thing that you have for your divorce?" I'm like, "Yeah, we all have them, usually." He goes, "Well, the language in mine says that I will be seeing, can't, how did he put it? He put it where he would be informed before the kids introduced, he would be introduced to the other half." And I said, hmm. And so people put all this
Wow.
stuff in their contracts, and depending upon how stuff's written, it's a crazy world. And I got very lucky, and I know there's guys who there's been divorces with restraining orders involved, and things like that. And those are tough situations. And there's also people who are going to sit there and say, you know what, I don't really care. I'm doing it my way. I'm divorced at noon today. It's 12:01. I'm going to get a date.
I don't know if I'm not sure you can blame some of the guys for that. I mean, depending on
Right?
how the end of the marriage went, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's wow. It's such a volatile field to
Hmm.
be in. And now, okay, so let me get to another piece here,
Sure.
because I'm just gonna we could talk about different pieces of this all day. And you're like, hey, I'm wide open, and so am I. So you know what? I'm gonna go wherever my addled brain takes me right now.
Go for it.
I have a lot of experience in divorce, unfortunately,
Hmm.
so um, as I sit here and I hear what you had to say, I
Hmm.
mean, you're a nice guy. You went through a fairly amicable divorce,
Hmm.
but you're entering into a world that is just, I mean, you've entered into it. I know you're not doing this
Hmm.
new, so you've been doing this
Hmm.
into a world where almost every case you hear about is absolutely awful in terms of
Hmm.
emotional,
Hmm.
baggage and everything else.
Hmm.
How do you how do you start counseling guys who had just the worst experience in the world to be reasonable?
So, and I'm even put more of a spin on this for you as well.
Go for it.
So, as a paramedic, we used to get called to domestics. And
Mm.
where I was working in the various cities, when you get called to a domestic, somebody's going to prison because they're not going to leave two people together. And you could see the physical injuries that may have occurred. And to your point right here with the emotional aspect, there's nothing that I'm going to do to fix someone's emotions. There's not. As a paramedic, in my head, I said this person needs social services, possibly maybe protective services, and they need counseling. That rolls right into where we're at today. And when you get some people, some guys specifically who are fumingly pissed off, they're ready to go down to the mat. It's my kid, it's my house, I'm taking her down. I say, go see a therapist, a
Okay,
counselor.
good deal.
And it's important because the emotions on this whole thing are so can be so volatile. And
Yeah.
I'll admit, I sent a few texts when I was going through mine that were dumb, and I've said some things that were stupid, and it was my emotions getting so stressed out over stuff. Um, you also need to consider the fact that mediation, while some guys are like absolutely not, you may have to go through mediation. There's even cases, and you've seen this before. The judge orders a couple to go to therapy together and says you will go to counseling. You don't have a choice. And so when I'm talking to the guys going through the divorce, I don't prescribe. I don't sit here and say, "Tell me your issues." I don't. I say to them, "You need to go, whether it's online or in person. Seek someone who will walk you through this at a minimum, start talking to somebody who's objective and not in the middle of it. Because if you want a true, fresh perspective, talk to somebody who's Johnny or Jane in neutral and say, describe the situation. Because anyone who's listening to someone who's going through the emotions of divorce is always going to be in this back of the head saying, there's always two sides of this equation.
Mhm.
You're saying this, but what's the other half saying? Because there's stuff that she sees that you may not be describing to me that I need to hear about as well. So that what you ask is a super question. It's a totally loaded question. And I'm fortunate the guys that I've spoken to have said, cool, I respect that. I get it. And in my in one of the modules I have for one of the lessons, I say to guys, at least consider going once. I went at least twice to therapy. And I want to make sure that my head was okay, that my heart was okay, and my mindset was okay. And I'm admitting this here to you because it's uncharted territory for myself. I've only been married and divorced once. And I'm like, I got to get this right. I give myself a B or a C now, looking back at everything. But it's one of those things where I made it through, but I also talked to people as well. And I made sure that I was speaking to people who I trusted. And one thing you don't want to do is talk to someone who's going to turn around, lock and load, and unleash everything you just told that person to hurt. Now you're screwed.
Right. 100%. I love that answer. I really do. I mean, because guys, we all think that we're bulletproof when we're going through this stuff. Every
It's
one of
true.
us. We don't
Hmm.
think we did anything wrong.
Mm-mm.
We don't think any of this has anything to do with us.
Mm-mm.
And honestly, I had a therapist on here the other day,
Mm-mm.
and he backed me up on it too. He said, the last thing in the world a man wants to do is admit I may be broken in some way. I'm not, and let me go talk to a therapist. But it, I love the way you recommended it. It's like, look, just at least go and try it once at least, get something off. Because if all
Hmm.
they do is just talk for a minute,
Hmm.
then it's going to bring it all down. It's going
Correct.
to decrease the temperature. It's like
Hmm.
wait for a minute, it decreases the temperature.
Hmm.
That's great advice and a great way to handle
Well,
that.
well, thank
That's
you, thank you. And
all
that's
right.
also while some states do in Colorado, gosh, I got divorced so long ago. They had a 90-day waiting period. You file your paperwork and then you have to wait 90 days. It's a cooling off period. And a lot of places have that. What was interesting to see was when the escalation increased, and as a paramedic, we'd see domestics where the emotions were flaring, and I worked overnights in urban settings, so often the times there's alcohol and drugs involved, and you just watch the escalation sky high, and you see what started off as calm, and cops, fire guys, and myself, we can't de-escalate. They're gonna have to let the stuff go. To your point, so it's a whole different world to observe this stuff, and it's super sad to see when it happens.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that end of it, that angle.
Different world altogether.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. The all right, we'll change gears a little bit here. You
Hmm.
you do talk about co-parenting. So let's
Hmm.
talk about something that's a little nicer, hopefully.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Then,
yeah.
dating is a tough one to get into, but
Sure.
everybody loves to try to co-parent. I
Hmm.
know that most of the guys that I deal with are being shut out of the co-parenting loop. Um, what do you tell guys in terms of co-parenting? Give me some of
Hmm.
the advice you give some of these guys.
Yeah. Always keep the kids as your priority, even if you are getting shut out. And my approach to this, and I've told this to several guys, be flexible. And there's a couple things we have to look at here. One is what do your divorce papers say as far as the rules? Because if it's very strictly written out, then you have to quote unquote play by those rules. On the same token, and depending upon the relationship with your ex or soon to be ex, there may be some wiggle room in there. And for myself, we had written our memo of understanding to the point where we would approach holidays, different family gatherings, and my access to the kids in a certain manner. And we did the traditional 50%, 50%. And so we tried that, and then reality hit. And as they got older, kids started getting different activities. So now you got to start carpooling stuff. And maybe little Johnny or little Susie, it's their weekend to be with you. And little Johnny, little Susie gets to your house and says, I don't want to be here. I want to go back to mom's. Support your kids, let them, because I've seen it where a guy will say, no, you're staying here. And now the weekend, the kid's miserable for the weekend. And I know for a fact that there's families out there where the dad said to the kid, you are staying here, period, because I have this time with you. And the kid has a miserable weekend. Flip side, cool, I get it. You don't want to be here. They go back, and then you reach out to your ex and say, look, they didn't want to be here this weekend. Can we try again next weekend? And respecting those boundaries. The other factor is when you get people who are in super intense, high passion divorces and the two parties are not getting along at all. The other part of this is you may have to go back to court to adjust your child, the amount of time you have with the kiddos. That happens all the time. We adjust who has kids for what time. The other unfortunate part about this is when you have to have supervised visitation.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can visit, but you're going to have to be monitored now. So with me and my approach to parenting and co-parenting, I was fluid with my ex. We tried to get along. There were some times the kids showed up, they didn't want to be here. They got here and they said, I'm going to see my neighbors up the street, what have you. I try to keep it fluid and honest. And when the kids asked me questions, I was honest and I didn't say anything to them that I wouldn't mind them saying back to my ex because I try to keep it on the up and up and level. Another thing with co-parenting, I didn't try to leverage my kids against my ex or anyone else for that matter. I treated them like my kids. Was going through divorce with kids difficult? Yes. And the hardest part of co-parenting for me with my daughter was we used to drive back and forth across Denver Metro because she was living on the east side of the metro. I was on the west side, and she was doing some after school activities on the west side. So I would pick her up and drive her back and forth. We had all this time to get in the car. Then she gets her license, and she's gone. I'm like, I missed that time.
Yeah.
Flip side, my son played hockey growing up, and I used to play. So we drove weekends all over the state playing hockey all this time. And then once he got to Czech League, he dropped out because he didn't want to get blown up on the ice anymore. I said, I totally get that. He switched to skiing in the mountains, and I hardly ever get to the mountains. And so all of a sudden, I go from all this time with him, from a co-parenting perspective, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm losing. And to this day, and I was even telling my ex this the other day when my son was having some surgery, and I said the hardest part of this whole thing was when Rachel got her license, and I said when Ian switched over to skiing. Period.
Because of the time.
The
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. 100%. My goodness. Let me ask you this,
Mm,
because you said that you did a really good job of, adhering to the rules. Knowing the rules is a great piece of advice. First, right out of the gate, to all the guys out there listening, read your contracts, know your rules, because you can't just go out there and go, well, I don't care what that says. That's a quick ticket to the slammer right there.
correct.
I mean,
Correct.
the cops show up, they look at the agreement, and
Hmm.
then you're not there anymore. So, know the rules is a great way to start. But you mentioned that were pretty good about adhering to the rules and
Hmm.
sticking with the agreements and this type of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
I'm curious, and I'm
Hmm.
not trying to badmouth anybody, but just in terms of your experience, did your ex-wife, was she cooperative with it too, or did you run into problems on that end?
To my knowledge, it's been smooth the entire time
Really?
because she also plays by the rules. And
Yeah.
because we both said the kids are the priority, we are going to try to put our personal differences aside and make sure we focus on the kids in the paper. But no, to my knowledge, there was no surprises. I am very familiar with another couple where that was not the case, and he hid assets. He did all kinds of stuff behind the scenes, leaving his ex in a lurch and a half, and that's when you're not playing by the rules. And when you're doing stuff differently behind the scenes, and I tell people in the program, I said, to your point, playing by the rules is key. So if for some reason you're going through your divorce or you get divorced and all of a sudden you find yourself getting arrested for whatever reason it is, you're gonna have to tell your lawyer because that's now a hit on your record. And if you don't
Yeah.
disclose that down the road, to your point, that's gonna become an issue. I've never been in that situation, but there are people out there, and as a medic, I've seen people get arrested. That now becomes part of your divorce luggage for life. And the other thing to think about as you go through this, I said this the other day to somebody, you sign your divorce papers at 1 o'clock on a Friday. You're not just divorced then, you are divorced for life and it never ends. You have this relationship it's not a bad, it is what it is. So you automatically have the ex, her family, friends, social groups, etc., for the rest of your life and your kiddos and everything else. So for guys who are going through divorce for the first time, you're like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to sign and be done with it. It sticks with you. That's why you have the rules written down. That's why there's guidance with you because situations are going to occur where you got to make some decisions.
Yeah, well, you are fortunate to have had that situation. So, I mean, power to you, and I'm
Mm.
happy for you. What do you say to guys who are on the other side of that, who, basically their wives are using the kids, to manipulate the rules, so
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
speak,
Hmm.
and men can't just call the cops.
Correct.
It just doesn't
Right.
work that way. What do you say to those guys? Because I'm sure you've run into them before.
Yes. Play by the rules. Stay by the rules. Don't deviate. If you have a lawyer, update your lawyer nonstop because a lot of times what happens is not so much you and your ex now discussing the kid. It's gonna be lawyer to lawyer having a discussion and then come back down to you. I hate to say this, but I'm going to because I've said it before. A lot of times divorce can be considered a business transaction because you've got two parties involved and things are flowing back and forth between the two. And if you're not able to make decisions, even the courts are going to say to you, you're going to have to get some mediation or lawyers involved to go through that. And when guys are going through this, it sucks when The partners use the kids against you. Is there anything you can do? There is not. The only thing you can do is manage how you react to it and how you respond to it and trying to keep an even keeled head. And I'm sitting here saying this to you, Rory, and I'm saying to myself, listeners can be like, dude, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's not, I get that. Sometimes what you have to do is to step back, walk away and step back. There's nothing worse than being in a situation where it escalates. And even situations where your ex is with maybe her family members and there's a discussion in the kitchen, the kids are outside, and you're trying to get some discussions taking place, you're shaking your head yes to this already.
Hmm.
The influence of that other side, your best option may be to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to excuse myself politely and walk away. And sometimes that is the best thing to do. And some guys are going to be saying to me, I'm not. I'm going to stay there. And I'm like, you can only do what you're going to do. And if it escalates, just be aware your kids are seeing this as well, and other family, and kids remember stuff and they hold on to stuff. And I always tell guys to take the high road and be especially cautious. And this is super relevant. Holiday time, wherever there's potential for cocktails and or other substances, and that comes into play big time because if you're having Thanksgiving dinner and you're trying to co-parent politely and someone's had too much wine or what have you, all of a sudden the comment slips or maybe a slide just slips, just be aware, situational awareness, to be aware of what's going around you and do your best to be even keeled. And I've heard of scenarios where it's fallen apart at holiday times, et cetera, for families and dads leave houses pissed, storm, slamming doors. It's ugly, it's awkward, but that's reality.
I love that advice too. I really do, because that's something that guys just can't seem to get a hold on. Because the reaction is she's not following the rules of this divorce decree,
Right.
so I don't have to. And what ends up happening is, well, she's not following the rules, but when you break the rules in return,
Mhm.
you're the one who's in trouble. So
Right.
you do have to take the high road is the perfect way to say it. Even
Correct.
if she's breaking those rules, you still have to be like, I'm just going to tell my lawyer this happened, and
Hmm.
we're going to document this, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to follow you down this road because
Correct.
very often the really sly ones are trying to get you to break the rules to use
Absolutely.
you later.
Oh, the other thing they do, remember when it's kind of like in a hockey game when you're watching and the first guy throws a punch, ref doesn't see it, but what they see is a guy who swings back, and that's the guy that gets the penalty. So it's the same thing in a marriage. I mean,
Yep.
you go and you retaliate, boom, there. And please, please, please do. The physical violence is so sad, and it does happen. And it does happen in front of the kids. So guys, take a deep breath, walk away, do whatever. And I know it's easy as heck for me to sit here and say this to you guys on a podcast, but it's true. Because the last thing you want to be doing is being escorted out of a house with these fancy wrist bracelets behind your back.
Right. Exactly. I love that analogy too. They're never going to see the first swing. They're never going to see
Correct.
that she broke the rules first and got you upset. They're only going to see how you react.
Reaction. Right.
Yeah. No, that's great too. Wow. Yeah, I've heard a lot of this and been through some of it myself, of
Mm.
course. But
Hmm.
nice. The other thing that really stood out when I was looking over your bio and stuff to me, because
Hmm.
I've had this happen in my world, of course, was the social media aspect. I mean, I did something as simple as my daughter was, I don't even know, in her 20s, right? So
Hmm.
we're not even in custody and everything else anymore. And all I did was post a picture. It was a great picture of all three of my kids, my daughter from my first marriage and my sons from my second that I'm still in.
Hmm.
And I posted this thing and I just said, my legacy, because I was just feeling great. I loved
Awesome.
that because there was all three of them together. It was just
Hmm.
like, I was in my feels,
That's
right? And
awesome. Right, right.
my ex lost her mind. Lost her mind. That's not your legacy. She's part of my legacy. And how dare you post that? And I was like, I never thought I'd have to block you on social media, but block. But just that little thing went off. So
Hmm.
when I saw you talking
Hmm.
about social media, check three
Hmm.
times, I went, okay, we got to make sure we bring this up because I'm
Yeah.
sure you have something enlightening to bring out to these guys about that also.
So when you use social media and you post, once it's out there, it's out there. Can you take it down? Yeah, it's still out there, period. And there may be IT guys who are on saying, no, that's not the case. That's fine. I'm just saying in general, for the common public, when you post stuff, it's there. Think, and I do the wait 3 times before you post. I have posted pictures I've taken down, and they weren't bad. I just posted it because I said, you know what, my daughter was in Chicago, and my niece and their friends, related obviously, were visiting in Chicago, and I said to myself, with the way I typed my post, I said, I don't want to be giving people an idea where my kiddos or my niece are traveling, meaning back where they're heading, because I got two young females bebopping around the world in their teens, and I don't want to place them at risk because if someone can dig through my social media, find out. So it's a balancing act of what are you going to post, and please do not vent about your marriage slash divorce online, regardless of the platform. I mean, guys are going to do it. Fine. It's out there. And even, I'll take it a step further, even just texting, texts are, they're audible. I mean, you can go out there and someone can do an audit on your text by your carrier to see what you were texting back and forth. And taking the time to wait. And I admit, I have sent texts when I was first going through the process that probably weren't the nicest texts, but my emotions were triggering. It is what it is.
You're not
Um,
alone. You are not alone.
so it's one of those things. And on social media, I'm super careful of what I post to the degree of when I was using the dating websites, I would post a picture of me and my kids and I block my kids' faces out. I actually had more people saying you should be letting your kids' faces be seen so they can see and appreciate what your kids look like. I'm like, no, I'm just showing you in proof that I've got two kids. And I said I'm not going to expose them to this world because for a variety of reasons. And so the social media aspect, it can also lead to problems down the road. And try similar to the discussion we just had about reacting to posts. If you're pissed and you're typing, stop typing, back up, back, take a breath and walk away. Because as soon as you get out there, you may, to your point, like yourself, you posted something, you're like, this is beautiful. And I agree with you. That's a legacy. That's an awesome picture. That's very cool you did that. Meanwhile, you get the reaction, and now, and you only know that reaction and where you're going to block her. I haven't had to block my ex. It's one of those things I don't always like everything she throws up, just it's kind of awkward at times. But social media can be super, super tricky as well. And disparaging your spouse on any form of social media, it's kind of a jerk move at sometimes. Just think about it honestly, because you're airing your dirty laundry digitally. Yuck.
Yeah. And again, it's just like the who threw the first punch thing. As soon as you go out and do it and you're the man in the situation, you're going to look like the aggressor and you're going to
Correct.
look like you're the bad
Hmm.
guy. If the wife does
Correct.
it, she's the victim. But if you do it,
Hmm.
you're the aggressor.
Hmm.
You have to understand the double standard that's there.
Correct. And it's not going to go away. And the other interesting aspect about this, there's a concept called being it's offense defense. And so when you come even up to a divorce, whoever initiates first is on the offense. So if I, because I know what I want out of the divorce, I know what I have on my checklist and all this other jazz, versus if you're receiving the incoming from your ex, you're now
Uh,
on a defensive and you don't know what's on her list specifically because, and how long has she been thinking about it? And why is she approaching me on this whole thing? And the reason I say this is because when you're on the offense, you tend to be a little more even keel versus defensive. You get put back on your heels. Now you're reacting. She threw the first punch. Now you're coming back to come back at it. It catches you off guard. And that offense defense mindset is significant. And most guys, well, maybe you wake up, you say, that's it, I'm getting divorced, I'm on the offense. I want the house, the kids, the dog, and the car versus her waking up doing the same thing, saying, I'm done. I'm getting the kids, the dog, the house, the car. And now you're reacting to it. So, always to your point, whoever initiates first, you're always going to have that reaction side. And that reaction side, you may not have a clue what's coming at you.
I never even thought about that. That is an unbelievable way of looking at it. I love that.
Thank
I
you. Thank
absolutely,
you.
I'm going to steal that, but I'll give you credit.
Go
I'll
for
give
it.
you credit, but I'm stealing it. That's wow. Because yeah, almost every guy that I end up talking to, she's the one who, implemented it or
Hmm. Hmm.
initiated. There we go.
Hmm.
The divorce, and that's just in my microcosm of who I deal with. I
Hmm.
know that it does go both ways,
Sure.
but as soon as that happens, man, that's a good point. As
Hmm.
soon as that happens, you are on your heels, and
Correct.
everything from that point forward,
Changes.
it does, and it's a reaction.
Hmm.
Everything is a reaction because
Correct.
the first move was wow, bang,
Her.
and
Correct.
right now here you
Hmm.
are. You're
Yep.
only in the situation because
Correct.
she went on offense. Wow.
And now you got to deal with it
Yeah, that's
forever.
wow, a really good point. You're right, because even after it's over, you're still the one who's
Still
reacting to
that.
everything.
Correct.
Man, realizing that,
Hmm.
realizing that obviously helps.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's kind of a leap to say that men should then be the ones who initiate,
Hmm.
isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, but
It's a
I
huge
wonder if
leap.
that's where you end up having to go.
And every situation will be different because even for a guy, so why would you ever stay in a marriage that's miserable? And there's two buckets here. One is you don't have kids, or two, you do have kids. And if you have kids, you may do it for the I'm going to stay in it for the kids. The other thing that someone said to me, Paul, was, Paul, the reason I approach this is, damn it, this is my life. I'm miserable. I've got kids. We'll figure this stuff out, but I am not going to live my life being miserable in a marriage that is not going anywhere. And sure, I'll do the placate thing and go to counseling and all that jazz, but I want out of this thing. And he says, I want out. I know what I want. I'm going from there. And that's the offensive approach where the guy's
Right.
like, screw it, I'm done, versus the opposite side of things. And the key with the defensive side is how you respond is so key. And there's no easy answer for that. To be every situation is different. And making that flip side there to the offensive is just it's every situation is different. And what's so hard to hear and see at times is, especially when you're in a public setting and you get a couple arguing and it starts escalating, and then you get it where he's like, "That's it, I'm done. I want a divorce." I slam down my plate and I walk out. That's the offensive right there. And now
Right.
she's on her heels. And so that the offense defense thing, and that flipping of the sides for the guys, it's so tricky. And for guys getting caught off bases by this, the thing that's so hard too is when you're on defensive, how long has she been thinking about this for? Who is she told? What's on her list? What's behind the scenes? Because, and for a lot of guys, they're not caught off guard though. They're expecting it. My ex and I did a lot of discussion about, I don't think this is going so well, blah, blah. So it wasn't that aspect. But I've seen some scenarios that had been downright just very unfortunate, especially if the kids see the occurrence occur.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh man,
It's-
unwind that tape. You can't.
right. I think in just about every case, and I hate to say every because that's just
Mm-hmm.
never the case, but in a lot of cases, I want to say a majority of them that I end up dealing with guys in who are in the situation, the overwhelming thought that happens when you're on the defensive, of course.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
let's set the stage correctly.
Yep.
They're on the defensive, but when she comes with, I want the divorce, and she's on the offense,
Uh-huh,
the overwhelming thought, no matter what her list might be that she
uh-huh.
tells you, the overwhelming thought is there's another guy,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
period.
Oh, always a factor.
Yeah.
And we had for in my scenario, we had my ex was exposed to another guy through work, et cetera, so forth. So I knew he was there. And so when this whole thing came unwinding, there was another guy. And
Oh,
she and I became more of a of partners, if you will. And when we went through from being married, separated, I moved to the basement because I wasn't going to leave the house. I'm like, I'm not going to go get an apartment because I know what my finances are, having been laid off, which is a whole nother topic. So I'm
yeah.
going to the basement. I'm gonna live down there. We told the kids, and we did that, and we transitioned little by little. Um, and I'm thinking through in my head right now, and all the divorces I'm thinking through, there's been, yeah, there's one where a guy had an affair. The affair lady ends up pregnant, and now the question is, whose kid is it? Because she's still married. And then you have, right, yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
Complicated even more. Why not?
just because you ain't got nothing else going on.
Right.
So yeah, so there's that, and it's it's the woman scorn, as the saying goes. Hell have no fury like woman scorn.
Yeah. And I mean, you're a specialist in this, with this topic right now in terms of dealing with it the way you do.
Mm.
Are you seeing trends? I mean, is it more infidelity by females, infidelity by men? Does having kids matter? Is everything really split down the middle, 50-50 that you can
It's
kind of tell? I'm curious.
based on my experience, it's all over the board. There's no consistency as far as that goes because you may have a couple who is doing really well, but maybe he has or she has a massive substance abuse issue, and then that's why he's filing for divorce. Or you have someone who's having some financial issues, or someone gets arrested, or there's domestic violence. So for myself, the 50-50 thing, it varies every couple. And I'm walking through every time I talk to a guy, or their correspondent, I go in wide open. So I have not seen specific trends myself, and I don't track it mentally either because what I try to do is I gain the experience of talking to someone, learning what they're going through. I put that in a cabinet, but then I continue on going forward because for myself, it can be a lot of baggage tied to this because you're getting to hear about all these other people's stuff. And which is you learn a lot, you appreciate a lot. But from that aspect, if I had to give the a spousal having an affair, not terribly. I mean, if it is, they're already having issues and they may be going through therapy because someone got caught having the affair or there's a hint of the affair, if that helps answer the question.
Sure. I really was just curious.
Yeah.
I've seen all, I mean, the internet's a dangerous place when you get into it sometimes. But I've seen so many stats going completely opposite ways, and it does kind of make you wonder, what you see. I know in my experience, I have a much more of a microcosm of guys that I work with. I don't work with women either, so I don't have
Mm-hmm.
that whole other side of the
Mm-hmm. The side
equation.
of it. Yeah, yeah.
What I see is that guys who, when in the cases where the guys were the ones who committed the infidelity,
Mm-hmm.
they almost never have children. And it's like the guys who
Hmm.
have kids aren't willing to put themselves in that spot. If they're
Interesting.
unhappy, they're not going to lose their kids
Huh.
over some other woman. But the guys who don't have kids,
Free for
almost,
all.
oh, really and truly, I mean, there's a,
And
a
now that you
swing that way.
and now that you frame it that way, I would agree. From what
Yeah.
I've been interacting with people, the guys with kids have, minus the one I just told you about where he's having an affair. Other than that, for the most part, if they don't have kids, there's some people out there who like to play freewheeling.
Yeah.
And it is, but I would tend to agree with you because they have less to lose. As soon
Right.
as you throw the kid in the equation, all that, because all the house, the car, man, it's material stuff. I can figure that out. Um, the other thing that's interesting is when they have the affair, is who are they trying to date? And I've seen some guys who are like, I'm dating up. I'm gonna date up big time. Watch.
That sounds like a self-confidence issue right there. I want to prove that I'm the man I used to be,
Right.
type of thing, right?
Hmm.
So
The
now,
alpha omega.
oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Now you're dealing with midlife crisis stuff on top of divorce stuff, which is even better.
Right.
So, wow. All right. I love this conversation. I mean, you and I could go back and forth all day. In the interest of time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I
I just
love that
looked
you
down to see what time it was.
I love that you brought all this stuff to the program today. But I do want to give you a chance, because is there something I didn't ask you about or that we didn't cover because we had kind of a freewheeling conversation, which I
Hmm.
appreciate, that you want to make sure you get out there, or a nugget you want to leave behind for our audience, which is mostly men, anything like that? The floor is yours to kind of close us out today, Paul.
Sure. Oh, thank you so much. And I appreciate the time here. And I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. And each one of
Thanks.
these brings up different things. So I appreciate the time. For the guys that are listening there, and I realize that your situation may be completely different. I totally respect that. And you got to do what's best for you when it comes down to it. If you do have kids, please keep the kids as your priority and your focus. To me, it's always easier to try to be accommodating and friendly versus hostile and aggressive. And I know it's so easy to say. I landed on both my feet. The divorce, it is what it is. I gave myself a B or a C. This program didn't exist back then. Are there parts of it I could have used? Absolutely. There's a resource here. If you guys think it might benefit, go for it. Love to have you guys participate. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your emotions and your mindset. The finance stuff is going to work itself out, but take care of you and realize you only got one life. So do the best you can do, and there's no set way. And in divorce, it's your path, man. Do what you think is right and seek guidance from others.
Another great piece of advice, man. You've just been dishing out gold this whole time you've been here today. So I really do
Well,
appreciate
thank you.
you stepping
Just
up
being
like that.
honest.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Um, gosh, Paul Murphy, Divorce Detox. Paul, thanks for being on today and sharing all this, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. It was great talking to you. I look forward to possibly catch up again in the future and visit with your group. So thank you so much.
Good deal. Folks, we will have all of his contact information in the show notes. So just one click, get to this guy. We'll have every way you can possibly think to get to that divorce detox, or message him directly and get some
Mhm.
information. So it's been another episode of the Power of Man podcast, folks. Thank you for tuning in. The reason that we bring on powerful men like this, talking about incredibly powerful subjects like this, like divorce detox, is because we know that we're all going through this stuff. Just because I'm out here talking about it on a big platform doesn't mean I know any better. It just means that I want to share the fact that I have all these scars on my back, and hopefully you
Mhm.
guys don't have to get them also. And if guys like Paul and I can survive our situations, so can you. So we want to bring this to you. You have value, you have worth, and you matter. At some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.